I own a 24-hour convenience store in Brooklyn. It's called Sam's Corner, which sounds wholesome, but I guarantee everything I sell is legit, at least on the surface. It was 2:17 a.m. I was behind the counter, scrolling through my phone with a lollipop stick hanging out of my mouth. The Shin's new slang was playing, the volume just loud enough to drown out the sound of cars hissing by on the wet pavement outside. Hey, you guys have Trojans? The ultra-thin kind. I looked up. A girl in a tight dress was standing by the aisle, giving me a little wink. We do, I said with a grin. But I'd recommend the Twisted Pleasures. Life's too short for things to be too thin. The girl let out a laugh, her cheeks flushing. You're terrible. Serious people don't run convenience stores. I shrugged. Besides, who comes in to buy condoms in the middle of the night and expects a serious conversation? She shook her head, smiling, and brought the box of Twisted Pleasures to the counter. As I scanned the box, I noticed the wedding ring on her finger. I'd grab a pack of gum, too, I said, lowering my voice. Chew a couple of pieces before you go home. You don't want your husband smelling the smoke on you. Her expression froze. A moment later, she fled the store. I let out a low whistle and logged the sale. This was my life, seeing everything, saying nothing, and occasionally saying just enough to watch someone squirm. A convenience store is a magical place. In the dead of night, people take off their masks. And I, Sam Carter, am the guy who gets a front row seat to the whole messy show. The bell on the door chimed again. Without looking up, I said, "Welcome to Sam's Corner. Condoms are in aisle 3, lube's right next to it. You'll need an ID for the toys." I'm not here for any of that. The voice was ice. I glanced up and saw a girl in a white summer dress standing by the door. She looked to be in her early 20s, with skin so pale it was almost translucent and black hair that fell to her waist. She looked like a porcelain doll. "Then what can I get for you?" I dropped the jokey tone. She didn't answer, walking straight to the beverage cooler. Her slender fingers drifted over the rows of bottled water. "This brand of water was bottled more than 3 days ago," she said with a frown. "Don't you restock?" I almost laughed out loud. "Ma'am, it's bottled water, not fresh milk." "It is to me," she said coolly. "I only drink water bottled the same day." I shrugged. "Then you'd have to camp out at the bottling plant." She shot me a glare that sent a chill down my spine, like I was being watched by something dangerous. Finally, she picked up a bottle of San Pellegrino and brought it to the counter. $3.50, I said. She pulled a crisp $100 bill from a Chanel wallet, laid it on the counter, and pushed it toward me with a fingertip. "No smaller bills?" "Keep the change," she said, turning to leave. "Hold on," I called out. "We don't take tips." She turned back, a cold smirk on her lips. "Consider it a down payment on your medical bills." "What's that supposed to mean?" "You'll need it soon." And with that, she pushed the door open and vanished into the night. I stared at the 100 for a long moment, made sure it wasn't a fake, and stuffed it in my pocket. Weird girl, I thought. At 4 a.m., I was yawning and restocking shelves when the bell chimed again. It was the girl in white. "We meet again," I said. "Is today's water fresh enough for you?" She ignored my sarcasm and pulled a thermos from her bag. "I need a cup of hot water. 160 degrees. "Miss, this isn't a Starbucks." "I know," she said, looking directly into my eyes. "But you'll do it, won't you?" For some reason, I actually went and got her the hot water, even using a digital thermometer to check it. 158 degrees. "Close enough," I said, handing her the cup. She took it and sipped it carefully. "Acceptable." I couldn't help but ask, "What exactly are you doing here?" "Observing you," she answered plainly. "You're interesting." "A lot of people say that," I grinned. "It's usually a combination of my stunning good looks and my brilliant wit." "No, it's because you live like a cockroach," she said, tilting her head. "Dirty but resilient. Lowly but hard to kill." I blinked. "Is that a compliment?" "Take it however you want." She put down her cup. "My name is Isabel." "Sam." "I know." She pointed to my name tag. "Starting today, I'll be coming around often." "Welcome," I said dryly. "Want to sign up for our rewards program? 10% off." She let out a soft laugh and turned to leave. I noticed she walked without making a sound, like a ghost. For the next few days, Isabel was true to her word. She'd appear at all hours, sometimes in the dead of night, sometimes in the middle of the afternoon, always asking for something strange, water at a precise temperature, a specific brand of tissues, snacks with a production date no older than the hour. Are you some billionaire's secret daughter or something? I finally asked one day. You're so picky. She was delicately sipping a bubble tea I'd made for her. 30% sugar, no ice, double boba. Worse, she said. I'm an only child. Oh, the horror. Forced to inherit the entire family fortune? How tragic, I said with an exaggerated sigh. Her hand shot out and gripped my chin. Her strength was shocking. Sam, you have a real talent for making people want to strangle you. It's a gift, I managed to say. Can you let go? A pretty hand like yours is made for caressing, not murder. She released me and, to my surprise, smiled. You know, you're the first person who isn't afraid of me. That's because I'm an idiot, I said, rubbing my jaw. Smart people know to stay away from danger. Exactly. She leaned in, her breath on my face. I'm very dangerous. I could smell the faint scent of her perfume, like cedarwood and roses. Dangerous and intoxicating, just like her. After that day, Isabel came by even more often, sometimes staying for hours. She'd sit on the stool in the corner, quietly watching me work, occasionally saying something bizarre. If you died suddenly, I'd buy your convenience store, she said one afternoon. I'd keep it exactly as it is, like a specimen in a jar. Gee, thanks, I said, rolling my eyes. Mywell says to cremate me and scatter the ashes at sea. No attachments. It's not up to you, she murmured. I always get what I want. I was about to retort when the door flew open. 3 masked men burst in, the one in front holding a gun. Robbery. Empty the register. Now. I sighed and put my hands up. Cash is in the register, about $2,000. Help yourself to anything on shelves. Just leave a good review on Yelp. The robber hesitated, clearly not used to such a cooperative victim. Don't get smart with me, he yelled, waving the gun. Phones too. I was about to reach for my phone when Isabel, who had been silent, suddenly stood up. You have 3 seconds to leave, she said, her voice as sharp as a razor. 3. The robbers looked at each other. 2. The leader laughed. Little girl, you think. 1. Isabel moved so fast I couldn't track her. The next thing I knew, the lead robber was on the floor screaming, his gun in Isabel's hand. The other 2 saw their chance and turned to run. Wait for your boss, Isabel said. They immediately scurried back, dragging their partner out the door. I stared, dumbfounded. Are you special forces? She disassembled the pistol and tossed the pieces into the trash. I don't like being interrupted when it's our time. Our time. That's right. She looked me dead in the eye. From now on, your time after work belongs to me. On what grounds? On the grounds that I just saved you, she smiled. And on the grounds that I can give you a better life. I shook my head. Thanks, but I like my life. You'll change your mind. She took out her phone and tapped it a few times. Check your account. My phone buzzed. It was a notification from my bank app. After I counted the zeros in the deposit amount, I almost fainted. This is a down payment, Isabel said. Marry me, and all of this is yours. Wait, what? Marriage? We've only known each other for 2 weeks. It's long enough for me. She tilted her head. You're interesting, you're not bad-looking, and your genes are probably decent. Are you trying to buy me as a stud horse? I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Not entirely, she said seriously. I need someone who isn't afraid of me. And you, Sam Carter, are the first. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Isabel took the opportunity to step forward and place a soft kiss on my cheek. You have 24 hours to think about it, she whispered in my ear. I want an answer this time tomorrow. After she left, I collapsed into my chair, my mind a complete mess. The string of numbers in my bank account flashed before my eyes. Me, Sam Carter, a broke convenience store owner, being proposed to by a gorgeous, crazy rich heiress. The scariest part was, I was actually tempted. The next day, Isabel arrived right on time. She was wearing a red dress today, so beautiful it was breathtaking. Have you made up your mind? She asked. I took a deep breath. I have a few questions. Ask. First, what does your family do? Real estate, finance, tech. A little bit of everything, she said nonchalantly. We were number 37 on last year's Forbes list. My knees went weak. I had to grab the counter to keep from collapsing. Second, why me? I already told you. She walked closer. You make me feel alive. That answer sent a jolt through me. Third, I swallowed hard. What if I say no? Isabel smiled, a chilling expression that made my blood run cold. Then I'll buy every single storefront on this block and turn your convenience store into an island. And then I'll come here every day until you say yes. Is that a threat? No, it's a promise. She reached out and caressed my face. Sam, you can't escape me. I looked into her eyes at the obsession burning there that was both terrifying and fascinating. Maybe I was a lunatic deep down because I heard myself say, fine, I'll be your trophy husband. Isabel's eyes lit up. She threw her arms around me and hugged me so tight I thought my ribs would crack. Excellent, she whispered in my ear. From now on, you're mine. To the afternoon we got our marriage license. Isabel took me to her home, or rather, one of her family's homes. Welcome to our new house, Isabel said, pushing open the ornate double doors with a sweet smile. I stood in the entryway, my jaw on the verge of hitting the imported Italian marble floor. This wasn't a house. It was a palace. The living room had 20-foot ceilings, a crystal chandelier big enough to swim in, and the paintings on the walls looked like they were worth more than my store's revenue for the next decade. Do you like it? Isabel asked, tilting her head. I love it so much I could cry, I said, swallowing hard. You'd need to hire an entire platoon of housekeepers to clean this place. Isabel laughed and pulled me inside. To the left is the gym and pool. To the right is the movie theater and wine cellar. Our bedroom is on the second floor. Our bedroom. I latched onto the keyword. Of course, she said, glancing back with a dangerous glint in her eyes. Did you think I was going to let you sleep in a guest room? I let out a dry laugh, thinking my time was probably up tonight. The butler was a stern-looking, middle-aged man who looked at me like I was a cockroach that had wandered into his pristine mansion. When Isabel introduced me, his mouth twitched, but he still managed a respectful, Mr. Carter. Arthur has been with my family for 20 years, Isabel said. If you need anything, just ask him. I nodded, thinking what I really needed was an AK-47 for self-defense, just in case she decided to turn me into a taxidermy project in my sleep. Dinner was served on the terrace. The chef was from a Michelin 3-star restaurant, and the dishes were so exquisite they looked like works of art. I fumbled with my knife and fork while Isabel expertly sliced her steak, her movements as elegant as a commercial shoot. Not to your liking? She asked, noticing my hesitation. No, it's just. I scratched my head. I think the steak costs more than my store makes in a day. It feels wrong to eat it. Isabel suddenly reached over, speared a piece of steak with her fork, and held it to my lips. Open up. I obeyed. The beef melted in my mouth, so delicious it brought tears to my eyes. Good, she asked. I nodded furiously. Then you'll have it every day, she smiled. I'll fatten you up. That way no other woman will want you. I nearly choked on the steak. After dinner, Isabel gave me a tour. When we got to the library, she suddenly pinned me against the wall, her hands on either side of my head. Sam, she said softly, you're mine now. We need to set some ground rules. I swallowed. Lay them on me. First, no looking at other women. Second, you'll always answer my calls. Third, she leaned close to my ear, her breath warm on my neck. You will come home to sleep every single night. I nodded like a bobblehead. Anything else? That's all for now. She stepped back, tilting her head. Break any of them, and you'll face the consequences. I laughed nervously. What consequences? She didn't answer. Instead, she opened a desk drawer and pulled out a photo album. The first page was a detailed floor plan of my convenience store, down to the exact placement of shelves. This is page 2, she continued, flipping it. The second page was a floor plan of the apartment I rented, including the dimensions of my bed. The third page was a list of my favorite diners and the internet cafe I sometimes went to. A chill ran down my spine. How long have you been following me? Since the day we met. She closed the album. So don't even think about running. You can't escape. I forced a calm expression. Who said anything about running? I've got a beautiful, rich wife. Only an idiot would run. She smiled, satisfied, and reached out to stroke my cheek. Good boy. That night, when I went to take a shower, I found that all the toiletries in the massive bathroom were the same cheap brands I used for my own store. Even the towel was the same scratchy, generic brand. Arthur, I said, wrapped in a towel, catching the butler in the hallway. These things. Miss Isabel's specific instructions, Arthur said, his face a perfect mask of neutrality. She was afraid you wouldn't be comfortable with the high-end products. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The woman thought of everything. The bed in the master bedroom was big enough to sleep a small army. I was wearing a new pair of silk pajamas, courtesy of Isabel, and huddled on the very edge of the mattress, terrified of touching her. After the lights went out, Isabel suddenly rolled over and pinned me down. Wait a minute. I flailed. Isn't this a little fast? We've only known each other for a month. What are you thinking about? She chuckled in the darkness. I just want to cuddle. With that, she wrapped herself around me like an octopus, her head resting on my chest. I lay there, stiff as a board, hardly daring to breathe. Relax, she murmured. Your heartbeat is deafening. I took a few deep breaths and slowly forced myself to relax. Isabel smelled faintly of roses, and strands of her hair tickled my chin. I don't know how much time passed, but just as I was drifting off, I heard her whisper, "Sam, you're mine." When I woke up the next morning, Isabel was gone. I stumbled downstairs to find her in the dining room, reading the Wall Street Journal, a lavish breakfast spread before her. "Morning," she said without looking up. "Eat breakfast. Then I'm taking you to see my father." I choked on my orange juice. "Meet the parents? Already?" "We're legally married." "It's not fast," she said, putting down the paper. "What, are you scared?" "Who's scared?" I puffed out my chest. "I'm Sam Carter. I'm not afraid of anything." "Good," she cut me off. "My father has a bit of a temper." After breakfast, Isabel drove us to a skyscraper in Midtown Manhattan. The private elevator shot straight to the top floor. When the doors opened, I was stunned. The entire floor was one massive office with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the entire city. "Dad," Isabel said, pulling me into the innermost office. "This is Sam." The man behind the desk looked up. He was in his 50s, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, with eyes as sharp as a hawk's. I instantly understood where Isabel got her intensity from. "This is the man you chose?" he asked, looking me up and down. His voice was like ice. "Yes," Isabel said, squeezing my hand. "We're married. My father-in-law, I guess I could call him that now," let out a cold snort. "I hear you used to run a convenience store." I nodded. 24/7, 365 days a year. Annual income? On a good year, maybe 40, 50,000. He scoffed and turned to Isabel. "And you picked this." "Loser." My fists clenched, but he was Isabel's father, so I held my tongue. "Dad," Isabel frowned. "Sam is exceptional." "Exceptional at what?" "Telling dirty jokes." I couldn't take it anymore. "Sir, I know I'm not in Isabel's league, but I'll work hard to make her happy." "Ow," he sneered. "With your convenience store earnings?" "Dad," Isabel's voice suddenly rose. "If you keep this up, I'm going to get angry." Her father was visibly taken aback, clearly not expecting his daughter to defy him for my sake. An awkward silence filled the office. Finally, he sighed. "Fine. You've made your decision." He turned to me. "Kid, I'm giving you a 3-month probationary period. If you don't measure up, you're out." I was about to speak when Isabel jumped in. "That won't be necessary. We're married. There's no probation." Her father's face darkened. Seeing a fight about to break out, I quickly intervened. "Sir, I understand your concerns. Tell you what, I'll volunteer for the trial. If I can't meet your standards in 3 months, I'll leave Isabel on my own." Isabel whipped her head around to glare at me, but I squeezed her hand, giving her a reassuring look. Her father narrowed his eyes. "Interesting. All right then. First test. There's a corporate gala next week. You'll represent the company. Don't embarrass me." Isabel was silent the entire way down. As soon as we were in the car, she slammed her fist on the steering wheel. "Why did you agree to that?" she demanded. "Our marriage has nothing to do with him." I took her hand. "I don't want to see you fight with him. Besides, I'm confident I can pass his test." She stared at me for a few seconds, then leaned over and bit my lip hard. "Ow, are you part dog?" "That's your punishment," she huffed. "Next time you make a decision for me, I'll bite somewhere else." I instinctively crossed my legs. For the next few days, Isabel put me through an intense boot camp. From table manners to business terminology, from suit coordination to wine tasting, it was a crash course that made my head spin. "Why are champagne flutes tall and thin?" she asked, holding up a glass. "To look nice." "Wrong. It's to allow the bubbles to rise slowly, preserving the texture." She sighed. "Again." The worst part was dance lessons. I have 2 left feet. My waltz looked more like a clumsy attempt at Tai Chi. After I'd stepped on her feet for the 10th time, Isabel finally gave up. "Forget it," she said, rubbing her toes. "Just sit still at the gala." On the 5th day of training, I was collapsed on the couch, exhausted. Isabel sat down next to me with a glass of red wine. "Tired?" she asked. "Yeah," I said with my eyes closed. Being a trophy husband is way more tiring than running a convenience store. She chuckled and held the glass to my lips. "Have a sip." I took a small taste. It was rich and complex with a hint of fruit. "Good. Delicious. 82 Lafite," she said, swirling the glass. "One bottle is worth more than your store's semi-annual profit." I almost spit it out. "That expensive?" "Get used to it," she said, leaning her head on my shoulder. "You'll be drinking a lot from now on." I looked down at her. Her eyes were closed, her long lashes casting shadows on her cheeks, a contented smile on her lips. In that moment, she didn't look like a dangerous queen, but like a normal girl. On impulse, I leaned down and kissed her forehead. She opened her eyes, a little surprised. "What?" I asked. "Nothing." She leaned back against me. "I just didn't expect you to kiss me first." I smiled. There'd be more of that. The night before the gala, Isabel gave me a custom-tailored suit. "Try it on," she commanded. After changing, I stood in front of the mirror and barely recognized myself. I actually cleaned up pretty well. "So, how do I look?" I did a little spin. Isabel didn't say a word. She just pushed me against the wall and kissed me. It was an urgent, fierce kiss, as if she wanted to devour me. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathless. "Tomorrow," she said, holding my face in her hands, "I want everyone to know that you belong to me." I nodded. "Yes, my queen." She smiled, her eyes impossibly soft. "Good night, my convenience store man." The day of the corporate gala, I stood in front of the mirror wearing the suit Isabel had picked out, barely recognizing the slick-looking guy staring back at me. Was this really the same smart-mouthed convenience store owner? "Stop staring," Isabel said, walking over to adjust my tie. "Remember, no matter what happens tonight, I'm here." I looked down at her. She was wearing a deep red gown, looking like a beautiful, thorny rose. It was breathtaking. "What, cat got your tongue?" she teased. "Yeah," I admitted honestly. "I was just thinking, with a wife this beautiful, I'm gonna need a lifetime supply of Trojans to keep you locked down." She pinched my side hard, but couldn't suppress a smile. "You and your filthy mouth." The gala was held at the most exclusive hotel in Manhattan. My legs felt a little weak as we got out of the car, but Isabel looped her arm through mine, her nails digging gently into my skin. "Ow, good," she smiled. "Remember that feeling, and don't embarrass me." The ballroom was a sea of glittering chandeliers and high society elites. I felt like a duck that had wandered into a flock of swans. "Isabel," a middle-aged woman greeted them. "Is this your husband?" "Yes, Mrs. Chun," Isabel said with a saccharine smile. "This is my husband, Sam Carter. He used to run a chain of convenience stores and is preparing to take over some of our family's business ventures." I almost choked on my own saliva. A chain? I had one small store. Mrs. Chun looked me up and down like I was a piece of meat at the market. "It's good for young people to have an entrepreneurial spirit, but he still has a lot to learn," Isabel finished for her, tracing circles on my back as a signal to keep my mouth shut. After a few more pleasantries, Isabel was pulled away by some business partners. I was about to hit the buffet table when a slick-haired guy blocked my path. "So you're Isabel's new husband?" he asked, swirling a glass of champagne. "I hear you used to own a convenience store." I nodded, 24/7, 365. "How quaint," he smirked. "I'm Dylan Vance from Vance Holdings. Isabel and I grew up together." "Ah, the rival appears." I grinned. "Childhood friends, huh? Then I guess you know she bites when she's sleeping." Dylan's face twisted. "You, just kidding," I said, clapping his shoulder. "She only bites me." Dylan shrugged my hand off, his voice low. "Don't get cocky. You think she's really into you? She's just doing this to spite her father for an arranged marriage he was planning." Before I could fire back, the room suddenly went quiet. All eyes turned to the entrance. My father-in-law had arrived. He wore a perfectly tailored suit, his presence as commanding as a lion's. As he passed, he shot me a cold glare that clearly said, "Get ready to make a fool of yourself, kid." The gala officially began, and the host announced a special segment, an impromptu business case analysis. A slide appeared on the big screen, detailing the struggles of a convenience store chain facing a need to modernize. I almost laughed out loud. This was my home turf. We'd like to invite some of our brilliant young minds to share their thoughts, the host said, scanning the room. Mr. Vance, would you like to start? Dylan stood and delivered a polished speech about big data, supply chain optimization, and brand repositioning, all buzzwords straight out of a business textbook. It was my turn. I straightened my suit and walked onto the stage. Hundreds of pairs of eyes were on me. In the corner, Isabel gave me a subtle thumbs up. Good evening, everyone, I began. Mr. Vance made some excellent points, but there's just one small problem. I paused for effect. In the real world of convenience stores, none of that stuff actually works. A murmur went through the crowd. My father-in-law's face was as black as thunder. What's the most important thing for a convenience store? I asked and answered my own question. It's the human touch. Do you know why Mrs. Gable from apartment 3B comes in every day for a bottle of water? Because her son is deployed overseas, and the clerk will say, "Hey, so your son posted a new picture on Facebook today? It looks good." I was getting into a rhythm. Do you know why the night shift security guard always buys 2 taquitos from the roller grill? Because working nights is lonely, and that hot, greasy food reminds him of home. The whispers in the room died down. Modernizing isn't about turning stores into soulless, automated checkout counters. It's about making sure every single person who walks in finds a little bit of warmth. I shrugged. That, and making sure you're always stocked with Trojan condoms. Because life needs a little bit of heart, but it also needs a little bit of heat. The last line got a huge laugh. I saw Isabel shake her head, but she was smiling. To my surprise, my speech ended with a round of applause. A few CEOs came over to shake my hand, telling me my perspective was refreshingly down to earth. Even my father-in-law gave me a long look, though his expression was still that of someone smelling something foul. Not bad, Isabel whispered, pinching my lower back. But that last line was a bit crude. Crude but true, I winked. The essence of convenience store philosophy. Later, as Isabel and I were sampling some appetizers, a man in a sharp suit approached me. Mr. Carter, I'm a CEO of Dashmart, he said, handing me a business card. Your speech was insightful. Have you ever considered a position with us? I was floored. Dashmart, they were a major player in the industry. Isabel's hand suddenly clamped down on my thigh, her nails digging in. The pain was sharp. Thank you for the offer, I said through a pained smile, but I have other plans at the moment. After the CEO walked away, Isabel dragged me into the corridor outside the restrooms. You were tempted, weren't you? She said, pinning me against the wall, her eyes flashing. Never, I said, hands up in surrender. I am 100% loyal to my wife. You'd better be, she leaned in close. Or I'll tie you to the bed, feed you nothing but oysters and Viagra, and you won't leave the room for a week. The threat was both terrifying and a little thrilling. Honey, is that a threat or foreplay? Before she could answer, we heard footsteps. We turned to see my father-in-law standing at the end of the hall, his face a thundercloud. Dad, Isabel let go of me. Mr. Sterling walked over, giving me a cold glance. The speech was adequate, but you're a long way from passing. Was that a compliment? I was shocked. Thank you, sir. Call him Dad, Isabel hissed. Dad, I corrected myself instantly. Mr. Sterling just grunted. Your 3-month probation has just begun. He turned and walked away. Isabel and I looked at each other. Does that mean he approves? I whispered. Isabel shook her head. No, it means he thinks you might be useful. It was late when the gala ended. In the car on the way home, Isabel fell asleep on my shoulder. The moonlight streamed through the window, illuminating her face. She looked less like a dangerous queen and more like a normal girl. I gently brushed a stray strand of hair from her forehead. In that quiet moment, I realized I might actually be falling in love with this crazy, possessive heiress. My phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. Stay away from Isabel, or you'll regret it. I frowned, about to reply, when another one came through. You think you were impressive tonight? You were a clown. Isabel stirred on my shoulder, and I quickly locked the screen. Whoever this was, if they thought they could break us up, they had another thing coming. As the car pulled into the driveway of the estate, Isabel woke up. Are we home? she murmured, rubbing her eyes. Yep, I nodded. I did pretty good tonight, right? Do I get a reward? She smiled and leaned close to my ear. Your reward is you get to tell me one of your dirty jokes. I grinned. Once upon a time, a convenience store owner married a rich heiress. And then what? And then he realized he was the one being convenienced. Isabel stared at me for a second, then burst out laughing, the sound echoing crisply in the night air. For I was reclining in a high-tech massage chair at the Greenwich estate, thoroughly enjoying my new life, when Isabel slapped a stack of papers onto my chest. Sign this. I picked it up. The words Sterling Corp., Vice President of Strategic Investments, Letter of Appointment, nearly blinded me. What is this? I asked, my eyes wide. Me, a convenience store owner, as a VP of investments? Isabel sat on my lap, twirling a strand of my hair. Dad's idea. He said you did well at the gala, so he's giving you a shot. This is part of the probation? No, she said with a sly smile. It's a trap. I raised an eyebrow. How so? Strategic Investments is the most critical department in the company. It's currently run by my cousin, Caleb, Isabel explained. He's the heir apparent my father has been grooming, and he was the most vocal opponent of our marriage. I let out a low whistle. So my father-in-law is throwing me to the wolves. Exactly, Isabel said, pinching my cheek. But don't worry. I've got your back. I took her hand. Sweetheart, are you worried about me? She leaned in, our noses almost touching. No, I'm warning you. If you lose to Caleb, I'm tying you to the bed for 3 days and 3 nights. The threat was both thrilling and terrifying. The next morning, I walked into Sterling Corp headquarters wearing another brand new suit Isabel had picked out. The elevator doors opened, and a man in a perfectly tailored suit was standing there, his eyes as cold as ice. You must be Sam Carter, he said, looking me up and down. I'm Caleb Sterling. I extended my hand. Heard a lot about you. Caleb ignored my hand and turned on his heel. Follow me. I'll give you the rundown. The Strategic Investments Department took up the entire 32nd floor. Everyone was dressed to the nines, buzzing around like Wall Street elites. A guy used to wearing slippers and an apron, felt completely out of place. This is your office, Caleb said, pushing open a door, though I doubt you'll be in it for long. The office was spacious, with a stunning view of the Manhattan skyline. I whistled. Not bad. Don't get too excited, Caleb sneered. There's a project review meeting this afternoon. You're representing the department. What project? Acquisition of an organic milk brand. He tossed a thick binder onto my desk. Study up. Don't embarrass Isabel. After Caleb left, I opened the binder. It was filled with jargon and market analysis I couldn't make heads or tails of. I sighed and called Isabel. Honey, I need a lifeline. I could hear her soft chuckle on the other end. What's wrong? Your cousin wants me to lead a meeting about organic milk this afternoon. I can't even tell the difference between Horizon and Organic Valley. You idiot, she said affectionately. I'll have Arthur send a file over. It'll be there in 30 minutes. I hung up and sank into the plush leather chair. This trophy husband gig was no joke. Arthur didn't bring a file. He brought a flash drive. When I plugged it in, I found it was full of a competitor's internal data, market share, cost structures, even unaudited financial reports. Is this legal? I whispered to Arthur. The old butler was unfazed. Miss Isabel says all's fair in love and business. The meeting was in the top floor boardroom. When I walked in, my father-in-law was at the head of the table, flanked by several senior executives. Caleb sat on the other side, a thick report in front of him. Let's begin, Mr. Sterling said, glancing at me. Sam, you first. I swallowed hard and walked to the front. The data from the flash drive flashed in my mind, but then something else came to me. My time at the convenience store. The mothers complaining about milk prices, the office workers who were always looking for a deal. Gentlemen, I cleared my throat. I believe we should abandon the acquisition of Pure Pastures and pivot to Mountain Gold instead. The room erupted in murmurs. Caleb shot to his feet. That's absurd. Pure Pastures is the market leader in organic milk. Their market share is. Market share can change. I cut him off. And from what I know, Pure Pastures has had some issues with their infant formula production line. Mountain Gold, on the other hand, might have a broken supply chain, but their dairy farms are top tier. Mr. Sterling narrowed his eyes. Continue. More importantly, I said, thinking of my old customers. Today's consumers value a good deal more than just the organic label. Mountain Gold's conventional milk is also excellent quality. We could build out a full product line. I then rattled off a series of data points, some of which made even the seasoned executives look surprised. They were all from Isabel's flash drive, of course, but I framed them with the perspective of a simple convenience store owner. Caleb's face was grim. Where did you get this data? Market research, I said coolly. I recently visited 50 convenience stores and supermarkets across the city, talked to clerks and customers. After the meeting, my father-in-law called me into his office. Good work, he said, a rare compliment. But did you really get all that from your own research? I grinned. Some of it. The rest was from my wife. He was stunned for a moment, then burst out laughing. That girl. All right, we'll proceed with your recommendation. As I left the office, I saw Caleb waiting in the hallway, his eyes dark. As I passed him, he muttered, "Don't get cocky, convenience store boy. The game has just begun." When I got back to my department, the way my new colleagues looked at me had changed, from disdain to curiosity. A few of the women even slipped me notes with their numbers. I found Isabel waiting for me when I got home. She was lounging on the couch in a silk robe, sipping red wine. "I hear you made quite a splash today," she said, raising an eyebrow. I dove onto the couch and hugged her. It was all thanks to my brilliant wife pulling the strings. She pushed me away. "Don't get ahead of yourself. Caleb won't give up that easily." "What's there to be afraid of?" I said, kissing the tip of her nose. About my crazy, beautiful wife watching my back. Isabel suddenly flipped me over, pinning me to the couch. "Sam, do you know why I help you?" "Because I'm handsome." "Because," she whispered in my ear, "you're the man I chose. I'm the only one who gets to bully you. No one else." The declaration sent a warm jolt through me. I wrapped my arms around her waist. "Honey, is that a confession of love?" "It's a warning," she said, nibbling my earlobe. "Starting tomorrow, I'm personally training you." Training me for what? How to be a proper trophy husband. The following days were a whirlwind of Isabel's training. From business negotiations to golf, from wine tasting to horseback riding, she taught me every facet of high society life. "Relax your wrist," Isabel said, her hands covering mine as we stood on the polo field. "The aristocracy doesn't ride horses to get somewhere. They ride for the posture." I could feel her chest pressed against my back and was finding it hard to focus. "Honey, it's really hard to concentrate when you're this close." She pinched me. "Focus. Dad's birthday gala is next week. All of New York's high society will be there. And you will have the first dance with me," she smiled. "If you mess it up, you're sleeping on the couch." That threat was highly effective. I immediately redoubled my efforts. The night before the gala, I was too nervous to sleep. Isabel was nestled in my arms when she suddenly asked, "Do you miss your convenience store?" I was surprised by the question. "A little. It was small and run down, but it was mine." "When you've solidified your position at the company," she said softly, "I'll help you open a chain of them. The most high-end convenience stores in all of New York." My heart warmed. I kissed the top of her head. "Don't get the wrong idea," she said, looking up at me with a glare. "I just don't want you thinking about that old place. Your heart and your body both belong to me." That was Isabel's brand of tenderness, possessive and sweet, like her, dangerous and addictive. The day of the gala, the estate was decorated to the nines, the driveway lined with luxury cars. I stood by Isabel's side in a custom tuxedo, greeting the guests. My father-in-law gave me a rare nod of approval, while Caleb maintained a cold expression all night. When the dancing began, Isabel pulled me onto the floor. As the music started, I led her through the steps we'd practiced. To my surprise, I didn't step on her feet once. "Not bad," Isabel said, a hint of admiration in her eyes. I grinned. "Of course, I am." Before I could finish, a waiter bumped into me, spilling red wine all over my suit. The moment was instantly awkward. "I'm so sorry, sir," the waiter stammered. Isabel's eyes went cold. "Which department are you with?" "I am temporary staff." Caleb rushed over. "What happened?" He looked at me. "Sam, how could you be so clumsy?" I noticed the smirk on his face and instantly understood. He had to be behind this. "It's fine," I said, taking off my jacket. This thing was a little tight anyway. Isabel stared at Caleb, her eyes like a predator's. Caleb, you'd better pray this had nothing to do with you. Caleb's expression faltered. What are you talking about? As the tension mounted, Mr. Sterling appeared. What's going on? I stepped in first. Dad, I'm so sorry I stain my clothes. Could I borrow your study to change? Mr. Sterling gave me a long, hard look, then nodded. In the study, after I changed into a spare shirt, I was about to leave when I heard Caleb's voice outside the door. Dad, that kid is not good enough for Isabel. He's going to embarrass us all tonight. That's enough, Mr. Sterling's voice was cold. Sam is smarter than you think. His speech today was well prepared. So what? He's just a convenience store owner. Precisely, Mr. Sterling said, his voice full of meaning. That's what makes him worth investing in. It's easier to paint on a blank canvas. I stood frozen. I realized my father-in-law's tests were far more complex than they appeared on the surface. When I returned to the party, Isabel rushed to my side. Are you okay? I shook my head and pulled her back to the center of the dance floor. Honey, let's have another dance. The music began again, and this time I danced with newfound confidence. Isabel rested her head on my chest and whispered, What did you hear? I looked down at her. I heard my father-in-law say, I have potential. She smiled. Of course you do. I have excellent taste in men. The dance ended, and the room applauded. I held Isabel's hand and looked across the room at Mr. Sterling and Caleb. The former gave a slight nod. The latter's face was a mask of fury. I officially started my new life at Sterling Corp's Strategic Investments Department. When I pushed open my office door, I found a sleek bento box on my desk with a note tucked under it. Fuel for my hard-working husband. I made lunch myself. You're Izzy. My heart warmed as I opened the box. The sandwich was cut into a heart shape. The fruit was arranged in a smiley face, and even the hard-boiled egg had a little heart drawn on it. This wasn't the lunch of a corporate shark. It was the lunch of a high school girl in love. Well, look at the happy newlyweds, Caleb drawled from my doorway, holding a cup of coffee. Isabel never made me, her own cousin, a home-cooked meal. I closed the lid. Maybe it's because I'm better looking. Caleb sneered. Don't get cocky. Dad wants you to lead the presentation on the new M&A deal this afternoon. He tossed a file on my desk. Get ready. You wouldn't want to disappoint Isabel. The file was about acquiring Fresh Harvest, a chain of boutique fruit stores. As I read through it, my brow furrowed. The numbers were off. The profit margins were impossibly high. At noon, I snuck into a stairwell to call Isabel. Honey, have you seen the financials for Fresh Harvest? I have, she said, the sound of keyboard clicks in the background. They're cooking the books on their cold chain logistics and spoilage rates. Their actual profit margin is at least 15% lower. Does your dad know? Of course, she chuckled. This is another one of his tests for you. It all clicked into place. My father-in-law wanted to see if I could spot a trap. After hanging up, I opened an email from Isabel. It contained Fresh Harvest's real operational data, with a line of red text at the bottom. The vase in the conference room is bugged. Caleb put it there. Use it. In the meeting that afternoon, I pretended to be completely taken in by the fake numbers, enthusiastically outlining the potential post-acquisition synergies. From the corner of my eye, I saw Caleb's triumphant smirk. Then I changed my tone. However, I tapped the projection screen. These numbers are too perfect, unbelievably perfect. The room fell silent. I brought up the real data Isabel had sent me. According to my own due diligence, Fresh Harvest's actual spoilage rate is 3 times what's reported, which means the acquisition price needs to be cut by at least 30%. My father-in-law's voice boomed from the doorway. He strode in and shot a cold look at Caleb. Who prepared this data? Caleb went pale. It might have been an early draft from their side. Enough, Mr. Sterling cut him off. Sam, you're in charge of this deal now. I want a new valuation report on my desk by Monday. After the meeting, I got a text from Isabel. My husband is amazing. As a reward, you get to pick the position tonight, winky face. I almost dropped my phone. That woman always knew how to derail me when I was trying to be serious. As I was leaving work, Caleb blocked my path. Don't think you're hot stuff just because you won one round, convenience store boy. I shrugged. At least I don't bug conference rooms. His face fell. How did you? Let me guess, Isabel told you. He leaned in closer. Do you know why I was against you two getting married? Because she's sick in the head. Since we were kids, anything she liked, she either had to own it or destroy it. You think you're special? I looked him straight in the eye. Thanks for the concern, but I kind of like being owned by her. Caleb was stunned, then smirked. We'll see about that. When I got home, Isabel was busy in the kitchen. The moment she saw me, she charged at me with a chef's knife in her hand. I nearly bolted, but she just wanted to show off her knife skills. Try this, she said, feeding me a piece of braised pork. My first time making it. I learned just for you. It was a little salty and slightly burnt, but as I ate it, my eyes welled up. This girl, who was born with a silver spoon in her mouth, was actually cooking for me. Is it good? She asked expectantly. Delicious, I nodded, but my heart aches. For what? For this poor pan. It didn't deserve this. Isabel chased me around half the estate with a knife, finally tackling me by the pool. We rolled onto the grass, her on top of me, both of us breathless. Say that again. I wrapped my arms around her waist. I said, my wife is the best cook in the world. She gave me a satisfied kiss, and then we both noticed Arthur standing nearby, watching us with a completely blank expression. Miss, your father is on the phone. He requests your presence, along with Mr. Carter's, for dinner at the family home tomorrow. Isabel immediately scrambled off me, her expression turning grim. It's a trap. The family home was a traditional, sprawling estate in the countryside. As we entered, Isabel gripped my hand so tightly her nails dug into my palm. Ow! Suck it up, she whispered. Tonight, no matter what happens, you don't leave my side. In the dining room, besides her father and Caleb, there was a middle-aged woman I'd never seen before who bore a striking resemblance to Isabel. Mother, Isabel said, her tone frosty. My jaw nearly hit the floor. We'd been married for 2 months, and I never knew her mother was still alive. Mrs. Sterling looked me up and down like a piece of property. So this is the man you chose? Yes, Isabel said, placing a shrimp in my bowl. Mine. Nonsense, her mother suddenly slammed the table. You're from 2 different worlds. Think of the scandal. I finally understood. Isabel's possessiveness was genetic. Mother, Isabel said, slowly peeling her shrimp. Weren't you from a normal family, too? You only married into the Sterling family because you got pregnant. The room went dead silent. My father-in-law looked like he'd just swallowed a live toad. Isabel, her mother was trembling with rage. How dare you speak to me like that? I'm just telling the truth, Isabel said, putting down her chopsticks. Oh, by the way, I'm pregnant. Puffed. I sprayed a mouthful of soup across the table. In the car on the way back, I grabbed Isabel's wrist. When did you get pregnant? How come I didn't know? I lied, she said nonchalantly. It was the only way to shut her up. I breathed a sigh of relief, but felt a strange pang of disappointment. Isabel leaned in close. What, you want a baby? My throat went dry. I think we could practice the making part a bit more. She laughed and nibbled my ear. You perv. The next day at work, I noticed my office had been searched. Everything was back in its place, but the single strand of hair I'd taped inside a file was gone. One of the counter-surveillance tricks Isabel had taught me. At lunch, the director of marketing, a woman named Ms. Davis, ran into me. Mr. Carter, I heard you used to run a convenience store, she said with a dazzling smile. My cousin is thinking of starting her own business. Could I possibly pick your brain? Isabel's warnings told me to politely decline, but Ms. Davis asked some genuinely smart questions, and we had a good conversation. As we were leaving, she accidentally spilled coffee on my shirt and insisted on buying me a new one. Just before the end of the day, Isabel appeared in my office. She stared at my shirt, her eyes dangerous. Coffee. My heart leaped. How did you know? I can smell it. She leaned in, sniffing. Caramel macchiato, to be exact. She suddenly yanked open my collar. Who spilled it? I told her the truth. After I finished, Isabel took out her phone, a cold smile on her face, and typed a few messages. 5 minutes later, Ms. Davis burst into my office, crying. Mr. Carter, please ask your wife to call it off. I was just following orders. It turned out Isabel had her transferred to the company's branch office in Anchorage, Alaska, with a single phone call. Whose orders? Isabel asked, narrowing her eyes. Caleb, Mr. Sterling's. Isabel waved her away, then straddled my lap. Stay away from other women. Are you jealous? I couldn't resist teasing her. No, she said, her fingers tracing my throat. I just don't like it when other people touch my things. That night, Isabel's punishment left me sore all over. But what shocked me even more was when Caleb came to my office the next morning to apologize. I didn't know Ms. Davis would go that far, he said, his face grim. Dad wanted me to tell you he knew nothing about it. I didn't believe him for a second, but I accepted his apology. After he left, I received a text from an unknown number. Want to know the real Isabel? Meet me at Blue Bay Cafe tonight at 8. I immediately forwarded it to Isabel. Her reply, go. I'll have someone follow you. Let's see who's pulling the strings. That night, I met the informant at the cafe. It was Isabel's high school classmate, Leah Miller. Mr. Carter, I bet Isabel never told you about her. Glorious past, Leah said in a low voice. In high school, a boy had a crush on her. She strung him along for 6 months. When he finally moved on, she what? She drugged his drink and put him in the hospital, Leah said, her voice trembling. The Sterling family paid a fortune to make it go away. My heart pounded. I remembered what Isabel had said. Anything she liked, she either had to own it or destroy it. On the way home, I kept thinking about what Leah had said. Isabel's possessiveness, it seemed, was more than just a personality quirk. The lights were on at the estate. Isabel was waiting for me at the door, the night wind blowing through her long hair. You're back, she smiled, walking toward me. Find out anything interesting? I hesitated, then decided to be direct. I heard you drugged a boy in high school. Isabel's smile vanished. She turned and walked to the bar, her hand shaking slightly as she poured a drink. It was an accident, she finally said. I just wanted him to fall asleep, so he'd miss his date. I miscalculated the dose. I walked up behind her and gently wrapped my arms around her. Why did you do it? Because he lied to me. Isabel's voice choked. He said he only liked me, but he went on a date with someone else. Everyone lies. My parents, everyone. I turned her around and saw tears streaming down her face. In that moment, I understood where her demons came from. She was a child starved of love, using extreme measures to get it. I won't lie to you, I said, wiping her tears away. I swear. Isabel clung to me like a drowning person to a raft. If you dare lie to me, you'll kill me. No, she said, looking up, her tear-filled eyes burning with a possessive fire. I'll kill myself right in front of you. My heart lurched. I finally understood the weight of her love. It was fiery, pure, and dangerous. It was a poison coated in sugar. I opened my eyes to find Isabel propped up on her elbow, staring at me with an intensity usually reserved for priceless works of art. Morning, Mr. Carter, she said, gently tracing my eyelashes. You're cute when you sleep, like a big, docile dog. I caught her hand. Want me to go fetch a frisbee for you? Isabel chuckled, then leaned down and bit my shoulder, just marking my territory. You have that meeting with the Fresh Harvest CEO today, and I don't want any of those fruity vixens getting any ideas. I rubbed my shoulder. Honey, your marking methods are a little primitive. Primitive but effective, she said, swinging her legs out of bed. Arthur has the briefing materials ready, and we're the suit I picked out for you yesterday. At breakfast, Arthur handed me a thick folder. Miss Isabel asked me to prepare this. It's Fresh Harvest's actual operational data, including the 3 loss-making stores they try to hide. I flipped through the pages, stunned to see that it included daily customer traffic for each location. How did you get this? Trade secret, Arthur said, his face impassive. Miss Isabel also said that, if necessary, you can let them know we're aware of their falsified cold chain data. Isabel, sipping her coffee, added casually, and if they still won't lower the price, just leak a rumor that their fruit has pesticide residue. My hand twitched, sloshing coffee onto the file. Isn't that slander? That's why it's so effective, she said, tilting her head with an innocent expression. Besides, I wouldn't say which store has the residue. Let them figure it out. In that moment, I was once again reminded that I had married a corporate demon. In the boardroom, the CEO of Fresh Harvest, a Mr. Zhao, was arrogant. Mr. Carter, our offer is already very generous. I opened my folder. Mr. Zhao, Your 3 stores in Queens lost a combined $240,000 last quarter. Why isn't that reflected in your financial statements? Zhao's face paled. That's impossible. Furthermore, I continued, your refrigerated trucks are running 2 to 3 degrees warmer than standard, leading to a spoilage rate 15% higher than the industry average. That's a lot. Zhao slammed his hand on the table. I'll sue you for defamation. I mimicked Isabel's head tilt. Funny, I haven't mentioned which specific trucks had the issue. How do you already know it's defamation? The deal was eventually closed at 65% of the original asking price. As I left the conference room, Caleb was leaning against the wall, smirking. Nice moves, brother-in-law. Learn from the best, I said, patting his shoulder. Next time you send a corporate spy, pick someone prettier. Ms. Davis was a terrible actress. Caleb's face turned to stone as he walked away. I let out a long breath and texted Isabel. Done. Your husband's a genius, right? She replied instantly. You get a reward tonight also. I ran a background check on Zhao. He and Caleb were college roommates. I stared at the phone. It all made sense. My father-in-law was using me to put Caleb in his place. When I got home, the estate was unusually quiet. I pushed open the bedroom door to find Isabel sitting on the bed in one of my dress shirts, swirling a glass of red wine. Honey, what's this? I felt my throat go dry. Your reward, she said, walking toward me barefoot. She held the glass to my lips. A little liquid courage first. I took a sip. Courage for what? She smiled mysteriously and pulled a small, elegant box from the nightstand. Open it. Inside was a Porsche key. This is for me. My hand was shaking. MHM. Isabel leaned into me. Drive this to work from now on. Maybe it'll keep your female colleagues from getting too close. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. With my driving skills, I'll crash this thing in a week. Then we'll buy another one, she said nonchalantly. As long as you're okay, the car doesn't matter. This was Isabel's brand of affection. Possessive and sweet, a sugar-coated poison that you knew was dangerous but couldn't resist. Later that night, I was woken by the sound of quiet sobbing. Isabel had her back to me, her shoulders shaking. What's wrong? I asked, turning her to face me. Her face was streaked with tears. She shook her head and buried her face in my chest. I had a nightmare. I dreamed you left me. My heart softened. I stroked her back. Silly. Where would I go? You'll get tired of me, she choked out, just like my parents did. In the end, all they had left was tormenting each other. I held her face in my hands and looked her in the eye. Listen to me, Isabel. I'm not your father, and you're not your mother. We're Sam and Isabel, the convenience store owner and the crazy rich girl. A match made in heaven. She let out a watery laugh. Really? As real as a Trojan, I said, mimicking the act of tearing a wrapper. Isabel swatted my chest, then hugged me tight. Sam, she whispered, let's have a baby. I froze. Are you serious? Yes, she said, her eyes softer than I'd ever seen them. I want a child who's just like you. Smart, funny, and warm. In that moment, I understood that beneath her powerful, possessive exterior was a girl desperate for love and security. The next day, my father-in-law summoned me to his office. An elderly man I didn't recognize was sitting with him. Sam, this is Mr. Lynn, the majority shareholder of Fresh Harvest. Mr. Sterling introduced us. He's very interested in you. Mr. Lynn smiled at me. Young man, I hear you used to own a convenience store. I nodded. 24/7, 365. Excellent. Mr. Lynn slapped his knee. I love people who are down to earth. Not like some people, he glanced at my father-in-law, who are always so stiff. Mr. Sterling cleared his throat. Mr. Lynn would like to invite you to join his new venture, a chain of community-based fresh food markets. I was stunned. Don't say no just yet, Mr. Lynn said, handing me a business proposal. Take a look first. As I read it, my eyes lit up. This was exactly the model I'd always dreamed of, a hybrid of a convenience store and a fresh market, small neighborhood shops with a robust online presence. So, Mr. Lynn asked. I closed the proposal. It's a brilliant concept, but what? It's missing the human element, I said bluntly. Fresh groceries aren't just commodities. People don't just shop for ingredients. They shop for the conversation with a familiar face. Mister. Lynn's eyes gleam. Go on. I talked for half an hour, covering everything from product placement and membership programs to daily specials and community events. Mister. Lynn nodded along enthusiastically, while my father-in-law looked on thoughtfully. Brilliant, Mister. Lynn exclaimed. Young man, be my consultant. You don't have to quit your job here. Just give me half a day a week. After I left the office, Mister. Sterling stopped me. Sam, you're smarter than I thought. I was floored. Thank you, Dad. Don't get too excited, he grunted. I approve of your business acumen. That doesn't mean I approve of you. I'll keep working to earn it, I said sincerely. He waved me away, then added as I reached the door, How has Isabel's mood been lately? I turned back and saw a rare flicker of concern in his eyes. She's been great. We're thinking about having a baby. Mister. Sterling was visibly stunned. It took him a moment to reply. Take good care of her. She's not like her mother. The words sent a chill down my spine. The waters of high society were deeper and darker than I had ever imagined. That night, I told Isabel about Mr. Lynn's offer. To my surprise, she was fully supportive. You should do it, she said, curled up against me. You can't escape me anyway. I kissed the top of her head. By the way, your dad asked how you were doing. Isabel tensed. What else did he say? Just that. You're not like your mother. She was silent for a long time. My mother has severe depression, she said, her voice barely a whisper. She tried to kill herself 3 times. My father never loved her. He married her for her family's political connections. My heart ached. I finally understood the source of her demons. I will never let you become like that, I said, holding her tight. I swear. Isabel looked up at me, her gaze both fragile and fierce. If you dare lie to me, you'll kill me. No, she shook her head. I'll make your life a living hell. The threat should have terrified me, but instead, it sent a strange warmth through my chest. I lowered my head and kissed her, proving my loyalty with my actions. Late that night, Isabel was asleep in my arms. I slipped out of bed and went to the balcony for a smoke. My phone lit up with a multimedia message from an unknown number. It was a photo of Isabel in a cafe, laughing with a man I didn't recognize. The date stamp was from 3 months ago, right after we got married. The text underneath read, Do you really know your wife? I stared at the photo, and a slow smile spread across my face. I deleted the message, went back to bed, and pulled Isabel even closer. I groggily reached for the other side of the bed, but it was empty. I opened my eyes. Isabel was gone, but a note was on her pillow. Morning, honey, breakfast is in the warmer. I have a surprise for you today. I stumbled downstairs to find heart-shaped fried eggs and perfectly golden toast. Definitely Arthur's work, as Isabel's cooking skills hadn't progressed that far. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Liam Miller. Mr. Carter, have you thought about it? I have more information about Isabel. Ever since our meeting at the cafe, this concerned classmate had been relentless. I was about to delete the message when another one came in, like how she drove away a guy who had a crush on her in college. My thumb hovered over the screen. My head told me to ignore it, but my curiosity was a nagging itch. What are you looking at? Isabel's voice purred from behind me. So suddenly, I nearly dropped my phone into my coffee. In nothing, I stammered, quickly locking the screen. Just a group chat from work. Isabel narrowed her eyes like a predator sizing up its prey. She was wearing a wine-red dress that made her skin look like porcelain and her lips like fire. She glided toward me and snatched the phone from my hand. Honey, I lunged for it, but she was too quick. She sidestepped neatly, her fingers flying across the screen. My heart hammered against my ribs. I had nothing to hide but Leah's messages. Password. Isabel raised an eyebrow. Your birthday. I sighed in defeat. She typed 0405. The screen unlocked. I watched her face, bracing for the explosion, but instead, a slow, wicked smile spread across her lips. So, hubby, she cooed, wiggling the phone. This is what you've been looking at. I leaned over. On the screen was my search history from the night before. How to get wife pregnant fast. Isabel was grinning like the Cheshire Cat, having completely missed the text notifications at the bottom of the screen. I was just curious. I could feel my ears burning. Isabel slid the phone back into my pocket and stood on her toes to whisper in my ear, no need for guides. I've already tracked my ovulation cycle. You're not getting away tonight. I choked on my coffee. This woman was a devil, always catching me off guard. On the way to work, I did something stupid. I replied to Leah, 7 p.m., same place. I regretted it the second I hit send, but it was too late to take it back. I'm just going to hear her out, I told myself. I won't believe a word of it. At the office, Caleb strolled in while I was reviewing a file. Heard you drank Zhao under the table last night, he said, leaning against my desk. His tone was unreadable. I didn't look up. He insisted on a drinking contest. I was merely being a good host. Not bad. The convenience store owner can hold his liquor, Caleb sneered. But don't get cocky. The old sharks on the board of directors aren't as easy to fool as Zhao. I closed the file. Thanks for the heads up, bro. My use of bro seemed to throw him off. He scowled, then said, the board meeting is on Friday. Dad wants you to present the integration plan for Fresh Harvest. He then spun on his heel and left. I immediately called Isabel. Honey, your dad wants me to present on Friday. Is this him officially picking a side? It's standard procedure, she said, the sound of typing in the background. He wants to see where your loyalties lie. With me or with Caleb? With you, always with you. Then give a good presentation, she purred. By the way, I have a dinner with my dad and some clients tonight, so you're on your own? I breathed a sigh of relief. It was the perfect opportunity to meet Leah. That evening, I stayed late at the office, sent Isabel a working late text, and then headed straight for the Blue Bay Cafe. Leah was already there, dressed in a simple white dress that made her look innocent and pure. Her eyes lit up when she saw me. Mr. Carter, I knew you'd come. I sat down. Let's make this quick. What do you want? Don't be so defensive, Leah said, stirring her coffee. I'm just worried about you. Isabel's condition is far worse than you can imagine. She pulled a folder from her bag. This was her masterpiece from college. The guy who had a crush on her, he's still in a psychiatric hospital. I opened the folder. Inside were photos of a handsome, smiling young man and copies of a medical record that listed post-traumatic stress disorder. What happened? I frowned. He just took her to a movie, Leah whispered. And in return, she hired people to follow him 24/7, left dead rats on his doorstep, even installed spyware on his computer. He eventually had a breakdown and dropped out. He's still on medication. I closed the folder. Where's your proof that Isabel did this? He told me himself. Leah sighed. Aunt, I'm his sister. I was stunned. If this was true, Mr. Carter, my brother flinches when he even hears the name Sterling, Leah said, her eyes welling up. I didn't want to interfere, but when I saw Isabel doing it all over again. Doing what all over again? Leah pulled out her phone and played a security video. It showed Ms. Davis, the marketing director, being dragged from her apartment and shoved into a black sedan. This was 2 nights ago. Leah's voice trembled. Ms. Davis is missing, and the last person she was seen with was Isabel. A cold dread washed over me. Isabel had said she would handle Ms. Davis, but I thought she just meant a transfer. Mr. Carter, get out while you still can, Leah begged, grabbing my hand. Or you'll be the next one in a padded room. I yanked my hand back. That's enough. Isabel is my wife. I won't believe these baseless accusations. Leah gave a bitter smile. Then are you brave enough to test her? What kind of test? Simple, Leah leaned in. Tell her you had dinner with a female colleague tonight. See how she reacts. I stood up. That won't be necessary. Excuse me. I walked out of the cafe, my heart pounding. Leah's words were like poison, seeping into my mind. I knew I should trust Isabel unconditionally, but the photos, the video. I got home to a dark, silent house. I flipped on the lights and nearly jumped out of my skin. Isabel was sitting on the sofa in the dark, staring at me. Honey, I thought you were with your dad. I tried to sound casual. Isabel rose slowly, the click of her heels echoing on the marble floor. The client canceled. She walked up to me and straightened my tie. Long day at the office, sweetie. My throat felt tight. Why, yeah, pretty busy. Really? Isabel yanked on my tie, pulling my face close to hers. Then why do you smell like latte from the Blue Bay Cafe? And she sniffed my collar. Chanel, no. 5. Cold sweat beaded on my forehead. Sam. Isabel let go, her voice turning to ice. I'm giving you one last chance to tell me the truth. I knew it was useless to lie. I want to see Leah Miller. Isabel's pupils contracted. What? She said she had something to tell me about you. I decided to lay it all on the table. She said you drove a guy into a mental hospital in college and that you made Ms. Davis disappear. Isabel laughed, a chilling sound that made the hair on my arms stand up. And you believed her? Of course not, I said quickly, but she showed me photos and a video. Isabel walked to the bar and poured a whiskey. Sam, do you know why I picked you, my little stray cat? I shook my head. Because you were simple and kind. A blank slate. She took a sip, but now that slate has been smudged. She put down her glass and picked up a tablet from a drawer. Since you like videos so much, why don't you watch this one? The security footage on the screen made my jaw drop. It showed Leah pouring a white powder into a man's drink and handing it to him. After the man drank it and passed out, Leah made a call, a cold smile on her face. It's done. You can come pick him up. What? What is this? I stammered. Her brother, Isabel sneered. The supposed victim in the psychiatric hospital is actually there for a drug-induced psychosis. Leah made up the story about me to cover up her family's dirty little secret. My brain short-circuited. Then, the disappearance of Ms. Davis. She's perfectly fine, working hard at our Anchorage office. Isabel showed me a live video feed on her phone of Ms. Davis organizing files. Shall I call her for you? My legs gave out, and I collapsed onto the sofa. So, Leah made it all up? Not all of it, Isabel said, sitting next to me. I did teach that guy a lesson. He was taking pictures of girls in the locker room. As for my methods, they weren't exactly legal. She shrugged. But I never go after innocent people. I let out a huge sigh of relief and wrapped my arms around her. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have doubted you. Isabel pushed me away, her eyes glinting dangerously. You could have told me the truth tonight, but you chose to lie. What does that tell you? That I'm an idiot. It tells me there's a crack in our trust, Isabel said, standing up. And cracks need to be repaired. She started walking toward the stairs. You're sleeping in the guest room tonight. And starting tomorrow, you're on a 1-week probation. Honey, I'm sorry. I cried out. Too late, she said without looking back. By the way, I've canceled your credit cards, confiscated your car keys, and temporarily suspended your access to the company building. I stared at her, dumbfounded. Isn't that a little extreme? Isabel paused at the top of the stairs and turned, a sweet smile on her face. It's only day 1, sweetie. Enjoy your probation. As I watched her walk away, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This was the price of marrying a Yandere. Sweet as honey one moment, deadly poison the next. My phone vibrated. A text from Leah. So, what's your decision? I smirked and typed back. I suggest you leave the country. As soon as possible. Then, I deleted her number. Some traps you only needed to fall into once. I woke up on the guest room couch with a crick in my neck. This was day 2 of my probation, and Isabel was a woman of her word. My phone screen lit up with a schedule sent by Isabel. 07:00 wake up, monitored. 07:30 breakfast, delivered by Arthur. 08:00 departure, chauffeur pickup. 12:00 lunch, company cafeteria, menu pre-approved. 18:00 arrive home. For every minute late, $100 deducted from allowance. My eyes locked on the word. Monitored. I shot a look around the room, and, sure enough, a tiny camera in the corner was blinking with a faint red light. She was actually treating me like a prisoner. In the bathroom, my electric razor was gone, replaced by a cheap disposable one. A sticky note on the mirror read, "No sharp objects during probation, love, Izzy." I had to laugh. Was she afraid I'd try to escape or top myself? Downstairs, Arthur stood by the door holding a metal detector wand. Mr. Carter, Miss Isabel's orders. I'm to scan you for any prohibited items. Prohibited items? Your phone, wallet, keys, and other personal effects, Arthur said without a hint of emotion. Miss Isabel said all you need for work today is yourself and your brain. I raised my arms like a convict, and Arthur professionally scanned me. He pulled a pack of cigarettes from my pocket and shook his head. This is also prohibited. Arthur, I beg, come on, just one. Miss Isabel says that during your probation, all your vices are to be suspended. Arthur said, his face like stone. This includes smoking, drinking, and telling dirty jokes. Telling dirty jokes is a vice. By Miss Isabel's standards, yes, Arthur said, a flicker of a smile finally appearing. Hang in there, sir. The week will be over before you know it. My Porsche was gone, replaced by a black SUV. The driver was a mountain of man I didn't recognize. The name's Frank. Miss Isabel sent me to look after you, he grunted, showing a set of pearly whites. Great. My driver had been replaced with a bodyguard. In the car, I tried texting Isabel. Honey, can we negotiate? I'm dying for a smoke. The message was marked as read instantly, but there was no reply. 3 seconds later, Isabel's voice filled the car's speakers. No, I yelped. You bugged the car. And more. Her voice dripped with amusement. I can see your every move. Now, sit up straight. Your tie is crooked. I frantically straightened my tie, feeling like a puppet on a string. At the office, Frank escorted me to the elevator. To my horror, my office had been renovated. The locks on my drawers were gone, my computer had monitoring software installed, and even my trash can have been replaced with a clear one. This is insane, I muttered to the empty room. It's only day 2. Hubby, Isabel's voice chirped from my computer speakers. Enjoy your special treatment. At noon, I dutifully went to the cafeteria. Just as I sat down, Linda from marketing approached with her tray. Sam, mind if I join you? Before I could nod, my phone vibrated. A text from Isabel. Get rid of her. I gave Linda an apologetic smile. Sorry, this seat's taken. She walked away, looking disappointed. A line of text suddenly lit up on a tiny LED screen embedded in the bottom of my tray. Good boy. You get an extra piece of roast pork. I looked down, and sure enough, there was an extra piece of pork on my plate. How many spies did this woman have in the cafeteria? During the afternoon meeting, I presented my integration plan for Fresh Harvest. Halfway through, Caleb interrupted. Sam, this community group buy idea is low rent. It doesn't fit the Sterling brand. I was about to retort when Isabel's voice came through a tiny earpiece I hadn't even known I was wearing. Tell him that high-end communities demand hyperlocal services. Ask him if he understands the concept of premiumization of the mass market. I repeated her words verbatim. The room went silent. Caleb's face was livid, and my father-in-law gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod. After the meeting, Mr. Sterling stopped me. Sam, the plan is good, but execution will be difficult. Dad, I worked in a convenience store for 5 years, I said with confidence. I know what the average person wants. It's not just low prices, it's the feeling of being seen. Mr. Sterling looked thoughtful. Elaborate on that at the board meeting next week. I left the boardroom and let out a long breath. In my ear, Isabel laughed softly. Not bad, Mr. Carter. All thanks to my brilliant wife's guidance, I whispered back. Humph. Smooth talker, she said, but her tone was lighter. Tonight, you can sleep in the master bedroom. My heart soared. Is probation over? In your dreams, she scoffed. We're just upgrading to solitary confinement. Frank was waiting in my office door right at 6. On the way home, I casually asked, Is Isabel home tonight? Frank glanced at me in the rearview mirror. Miss Isabel is at a gathering with her friends. My eyes lit up. If Isabel wasn't home, maybe I could. Don't even think about it, sir, Frank said, as if reading my mind. There are at least 20 cameras in the house and 6 security guards on rotation. My shoulders slumped. Is this a house or a high-security prison? It's a fortress of love, sir, Frank said with a grin. When I got home, I found a master bedroom had indeed been converted into a cell. Ornate, wrought iron bars surrounded the bed, and a pair of fluffy pink handcuffs dangled from a headboard. What is this? I asked Arthur, pointing at the setup. Arthur was calm. Miss Isabel says you are to wear this while you sleep, he said, holding up the handcuffs. One cuff on the bedpost, the other on your wrist. I stared at him. You gotta be kidding me. Miss Isabel never jokes, Arthur said, handing me a note. She left this for you. The note read, Hubby, this is to help you break your bad habit of tossing and turning. Love you, P.S. I have a key. I'll unlock you when I get home in the morning. Defeated, I cuffed myself to the bed like a damsel awaiting her knight. In the middle of the night, a faint sound woke me. I opened my eyes and saw Isabel standing by the bed, silhouetted by the moonlight. Honey, I thought you were at a party. I came home early, she whispered, unlocking the cuff. I missed you. I seized the opportunity and pulled her into a hug. Can probation be over now? Not a chance, she said, snuggling against me. You're not getting off that easy for meeting with Leah. I sighed. What will it take to make you forgive me? Isabel suddenly straddled me, a syringe appearing in her hand. A blood sample. What? I nearly rolled off the bed. Don't worry, just a little, she said, holding me down. I want to run a genetic test. I need to see if our future children will inherit your idiotic genes. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Isn't that a bit? A bit what? Isabel narrowed her eyes. A bit brilliant. I quickly corrected myself. My wife is a genius. After she drew the blood, Isabel carefully placed the vial in a mini fridge like it was a precious treasure. Then she collapsed back into my arms, suddenly soft. Sam, you really won't leave me, will you? I stroked her hair. Never. Even if I'm this crazy. It's not crazy, it's unique, I said, kissing her forehead. And I like your uniqueness. Isabel looked up at me, her eyes shining like stars in the moonlight. In that case, probation is getting an upgrade tomorrow. What? I want you to wear a custom-made smart ankle bracelet to work, she said, smiling like a mischievous child. It'll track your every step, and if you get too close to another woman, it'll deliver a mild electric shock. My jaw dropped. I'm pretty sure that's illegal. It's a marital kink, not a crime, she said, nipping my chin. And the shock is tiny, like static electricity. What if I need to use the restroom? It has an automatic sensor. Isabel winked. But if you linger outside the women's room for too long. I buried my face in my hands. Honey, your crazy level is off the charts. You're the one who drove me to it, she whispered, burrowing into my chest. Now sleep. You have a big day tomorrow. I held Isabel in my arms, a whirlwind of emotions swirling inside me. In the moonlight, I gently kissed her forehead. She subconsciously snuggled closer, like a kitten seeking warmth. And in that moment, I understood. In this insane relationship, it wasn't just my body that was imprisoned. It was my heart, and this fortress of love she had built. I was a willing captive,